As we approach the bulk of conference play, there have been very few teams with more promising starts than the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee currently sits at 9-1 through its first 10 games, boasts wins over solid teams like Kansas and Maryland, and has one of America's best defenses per KenPom and Bart Torvik. There's a lot to like with this roster as well, as the Volunteers returned 5 of its top 7 scorers from last year's SEC tournament winning squad, and added high-impact newcomers like 5-star freshman Julian Phillips and coveted Indiana State transfer Tyree Key. The stars have once again seemed to align in Knoxville, but I'm not totally bought in just yet, and let me tell you why. Before I get into the weeds of expressing my doubts with this Tennessee team, I think it's only fair to offer some points of praise because the Volunteers are a legitimately talented squad. The calling card of Tennessee and pretty much all Rick Barnes coached teams is the defense. So far this season, Tennessee's defensive rating of 81.7 is the second best in the country behind Houston, and they are holding their opponents to an effective field goal percentage of 36.8%, which leads the country. Tennessee also ranks in the top 10 nationally in forced turnover percentage, 3-point percentage defense, and 2-point percentage defense, and there really isn't anything the Vols can't do on that end of the floor. No team has shot higher than 45% from the field against Tennessee this season, and due to their size all across the floor, they are a real nuisance to score against. The issue with all of this though is when haven't we said this about Tennessee during the Rick Barnes era? Since Barnes' third year at Tennessee, the Vols have made the tournament in every season aside from the COVID year in 2020, but in each of Tennessee's 4 tournaments under Barnes, the Volunteers have never been able to outperform their seed. In 2018, Tennessee lost to Loyola Chicago as a 3 seed in the second round. In 2019, a team that was at one point ranked number 1 in the country ended up grabbing the 2 seed in the tournament but losing in the Sweet 16 to Purdue. In a turbulent 2021 for Tennessee, they earned a 5 seed in the NCAA Tournament but lost their first game to 12 seed Oregon State. And finally, last year, Tennessee looked to have awesome momentum heading into the NCAA Tournament after looking dominant in the SEC Tournament, but failed to reach the Sweet 16 and lost to a talented but underachieving Michigan side in the second round. Now, to be fair, Tennessee ran into tough draws in nearly all of these tournaments. Loyola Chicago went to a Final Four, Purdue had a ridiculously hot Carson Edwards, Oregon State got to an Elite 8, and the aforementioned Michigan had a lot of talent on the roster that didn't necessarily reflect its seed. Still, the way these games and seasons have all gone is similar, and with the exception of the 2019 team that had one of the nation's best offenses, the blueprint for the Volunteers has looked pretty much the same every single season. They have a nationally elite defense and a good but concerning offense, and so far, the current team fits the same profile. For as far as Tennessee's defense can take them, it's the offense that can drag them back. On the surface, Tennessee's offense isn't that bad, as it's a top 70 unit in the country and scores a shade under 108 points per 100 possessions. They have 5 double-digit scorers on the roster in Phillips, Key, Zakai Ziegler, Santiago Vescovi, and Olivier Kamwa, and that doesn't even include senior wing Josiah Jordan-James, who averaged 10 points per game last year, but he's missed 5 games this year due to injury. Tennessee's scoring depth is appealing, as it can be anyone who takes the reins of the offense on any given night. The Volunteers have had 6 different players lead the team in scoring this season, and that's all good. But then you look at Tennessee's shooting numbers, and a lot of questions begin to emerge. As a team, Tennessee's effective field goal percentage of 47.1% is ranked 279th in America, which is well below Division I average and the worst among teams currently in the AP Top 25. They shoot 32% from 3 as a team, which again is below the Division I average, and they don't convert a high percentage of their 2-point attempts either, making only around 46% of them. It's not like Tennessee is taking bad shots either, as their offense currently ranks 6th in Division I per shot quality's database. They just don't make a lot of shots, and they turn the ball over on around 1/5 of their offensive possessions as well. And together, it doesn't really make for a potent offense. Despite all these subpar numbers though, Tennessee's offense stays afloat for 2 main reasons: rebounding and free throws. Tennessee crushes opponents on the offensive glass as the team grabs close to 40% of their misses every game, and this helps make up for their lack of shooting and ball control because it creates easier shots which they ultimately convert on. In Tennessee's game against Maryland, for example, freshman Tobe Awaka had 3 field goals in the entire game, and they all came off of offensive rebounds. Just how sometimes in football the best offense could be throwing it up to a big receiver and letting him make a play, Tennessee's best offense may very well be just chucking up shots and letting their big guys crash the glass. The Vols get an average of 15.7 second chance points per game, and that number accounts for about 1/5 of its total offensive output. Tennessee also does an awesome job drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line, as the Volunteers' free throw rate of 42.8% is a top 20 number in the country, and they get an average of 18.3 points per game from the stripe while shooting around 72% there. While Tennessee's offense is unique and relatively effective, previous years with this program have shown that the production just seems to disappear for critical amounts of time and in critical situations. And so far, this year's team is no different. Through its first 10 games this year, Tennessee has had 50 scoring droughts of 2 minutes or longer, and this allows teams to get back into games that they really shouldn't be getting back into. Again, looking back at the Maryland game, Tennessee was in total control for the first 30 minutes of the game, and held a 16-point lead with 11 minutes and 27 seconds left in the second half. The game should have been decided, but the Volunteers then had a scoreless drought of 5 minutes and 25 seconds that let Maryland cut the lead from 16 to 4. Tennessee ultimately won the game by 3, but the score didn't reflect how good Tennessee was for 3/4 of the contest, and that's been the issue with them for the last few years. Moments of greatness followed by stretches of baffling incompetence. Even with Tennessee's ability to get to the free throw line and offensive rebound, the lack of movement and reliable shooting makes this team a lot more beatable than its overall numbers would suggest. And listen, maybe this is the year that Tennessee and Rick Barnes finally figure things out and have a great season and tournament run. They certainly have the defense, size, and depth to do it. But given Tennessee's recent history and a profile that looks eerily similar to some of their most underachieving tournament teams, I'm not ready to buy in just yet. Thanks so much for watching, and give me your thoughts below.